Imagine this. It is night on the Sea of Galilee, and the wind has turned into something with teeth. The boat tilts so hard, the water comes over the side in sheets, soaking the rope, the nets, the wooden planks under their feet. Lightning shows their faces for half a second at a time, wide-eyed, white, salt running down their beards. These are not tourists, these are fishermen, men who have known this water since they were boys small enough to sit on their father's knee at the tiller. They have seen storms. They have buried friends who did not come back from storms. And tonight, they are weeping. Tonight, they are shouting at each other that this is the end. And in the stern of the boat, on a hard wooden bench, under a soaked cloak that the wind keeps trying to tear off him, a man is sleeping, while the world tears itself apart around him. The mast groans, the sail snaps like a whip, a wave breaks across the bow, and a man named Peter, who has fished this sea his entire life, falls to his knees in 2 inches of cold water. And the carpenter from Nazareth is still asleep. They stumble to him, they shake him, they scream into his face words that sound less like a prayer and more like an accusation. "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" And he opens his eyes. He does not panic. He does not ask what is happening. He stands up in a boat that is trying to throw him into the sea, and he looks at the water the way a tired father looks at a child who has been screaming too long. He says 2 words, and the sea goes quiet, like a dog told to sit. Complete silence. Water dripping from the sails. The breathing of 12 men who have just realized who has been in the boat with them this whole time. If you have ever felt like your life was that very boat, tilting, taking on water, and the one who could help seemed to be asleep, this story is for you. If you have ever prayed into a silence so long it began to sound like an answer you did not want to hear, this story is for you. Not as a lesson, as a letter written for you personally, 2,000 years ago, and just a long time arriving. To understand what happened on that boat and why it reaches you tonight, we have to go back, a few hours earlier, to one sentence Jesus said before they ever pushed off from shore. The sentence that explains the cloak, the silence, the sleep. The sentence that explains everything. If quiet evenings with these stories are something you need right now, stay with us, subscribe. There will be more like this. It had been a long day, a day of crowds pressing in, of parables about seeds and soil, of voices that wanted something from him from sunrise on. And as the sun began to lower over the western hills, he turned to his disciples and said something so ordinary it has been overlooked for 2,000 years. Let us go over to the other side. 6 words, a travel plan. But inside those 6 words is the entire reason he could sleep through what came next. Now travel north with me. Far north of Galilee, past the last village where Hebrew is spoken on the streets, into a region called Tyre, pagan country, foreign gods carved into the lintels of doorways, the smell of fish and foreign incense in the same breath of air. Jesus has gone there to hide. The text says it plainly. He entered a house and wanted no one to know it. He is tired. The crowds have not stopped. The questions have not stopped. The dying have not stopped lining up at his feet. He has come here for one quiet afternoon. One door closed. One meal eaten without someone reaching for the hem of his robe. And a woman finds him anyway. She is not Jewish. She is Syro-Phoenician. The wrong blood, the wrong gods, the wrong accent the moment she opens her mouth. She has a daughter at home, a little girl, somewhere in a back room of a house in the city below, twisting on a mat, screaming at things no one else can see. The mother has tried everything, every priest, every herb, every name whispered at every altar. Nothing has worked. And then she hears that the Jewish healer is in town, behind a closed door, trying not to be found. She finds him. She kneels at his feet on a stone floor in a borrowed house, and she begs. And he says no. Read it slowly, because most of us have flinched past it our whole lives. He tells her it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs. Not wild dogs, Kinaria, the small ones, the ones that sit under the table while the family eats. He is not insulting her, he is testing her, and he is using the one word in the language that leaves a door open for her to push back. And she pushes. "Yes, Lord," she says, "but even the little dogs under the table eat the crumbs the children drop." She does not raise her voice. She does not weep harder. She just refuses the first answer. And something happens in his face that the text does not describe, but you can almost see it, the corner of his mouth lifting, the recognition, the quiet astonishment of being met by someone who would not let go. For this saying, he tells her, "Go your way. The demon has gone out of your daughter." And she rises off the stone floor and walks home, and when she opens her door, the little girl is lying on the bed, still, peaceful, breathing slow. He never saw the child. He never crossed the road to that house. Her stubborn love crossed the distance for him. If you have ever prayed for something so long you forgot you were praying, if you have ever felt the silence after a request and read it as a no, sit with her tonight. She did not walk away from the no. She walked into it. And what she carried home was not crumbs. It was her daughter, whole. Now picture a different room. Jerusalem. An upper room, with the door barred from the inside, because the men inside are afraid that what happened to their teacher last Friday is about to happen to them. The lamps are low. The air smells of old bread and unwashed clothes, and the particular thickness of a room that has been closed too long. And in the middle of them, somehow, without the door opening, he is standing there, hands out, side open, eating fish in front of them to prove he is not a ghost. "Peace be with you," he says. And they weep, they laugh, they touch his sleeve. They will tell this story for the rest of their lives. But one of them is not there. Thomas, the one we have nicknamed for 2,000 years and never forgiven for it. Where he was that night, the text does not say. Maybe he could not bear to be in the room where they had all run. Maybe grief had sent him out walking the streets alone, the way grief does. And when he comes back, they fall on him with the news. "We have seen the Lord. We have seen him. He is alive." And Thomas listens. He looks at their faces, at the joy he cannot share, at the certainty he does not have. And he says the sentence that has followed him through history. "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." Now hold there, because what comes next is 8 days. 8 days of being the only one in the room who did not see. 8 days of watching them remember together something he was not part of. 8 days of every prayer they prayed sounding a little hollow in his own mouth. If you have ever been the last one still asking questions in a room full of people who seem so sure, if you have ever felt your faith was thinner than everyone else's around you, sit with Thomas for those 8 days. He did not leave. He did not pretend. He stayed in the room with people whose certainty he could not feel, and he kept showing up. And on the 8th day, the door is locked again. Same room, same fear, and again somehow he is there, standing in the middle of them. And the first person he turns to, is Thomas. "Put your finger here," he says. "Look at my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." He does not rebuke him. He does not shame him in front of the others. He comes through a locked door across 8 days of silence for one man's questions. And here is what the Greek text quietly notices. It never actually says that Thomas touched him. It only says what Thomas did next. He fell to his knees, and he said 5 words that no one in John's Gospel had ever said straight to his face. "My Lord and my God." The man with the questions became the man who saw furthest, not because he stopped doubting, because he doubted out loud in the right room until the answer walked through the wall to find him. Now stand at the foot of a hill outside Jerusalem, mid-afternoon. The sky has gone the wrong color, a low, bruised yellow that does not belong to any hour of the day. The smell of blood and dust, and the cheap, sour wine the soldiers drink while they wait for men to die. There are 3 crosses against that sky, and the one in the middle holds the man we have been following through these stories. His mother is standing close enough to hear him breathe. Mary. She has stood under a lot of weights in her life: an angel's announcement when she was barely more than a child, a manger in a borrowed stable, a sword that an old prophet once told her would pass through her own soul. This is that sword. She is watching it happen. The disciple John is next to her, holding her up under one arm, because her legs will not entirely hold her anymore. And from the cross, through cracked lips, he looks down at her. He does not call her mother. He calls her woman, Gainai. To our ears it sounds cold, almost a stranger's word. But listen, it is the same word he used at the very first wedding in Cana, years ago, when she leaned in and told him the wine had run out. Woman, what does this have to do with me? The first miracle began with that word. The last breath is ending with it. He is closing a circle only the two of them can see. And then, woman, behold your son. And to John, behold your mother. He is not introducing them. They already know each other. He is doing something quieter and more permanent. In the language of that place and time, those phrases were the words of adoption. He is taking his best friend and giving him to his mother as her son. He is taking his mother and giving her to his friend as his own. He is using the last strength in his body to make sure that when he is gone, she will not be alone in a room. The text says, "And from that hour, that disciple took her to his own." Not to his house, to his own, into his family, into the place where the last cup of the evening is poured and someone notices if you are not there. If you have ever loved someone you cannot save, if you have ever held something for another person that you knew you would not be able to carry to the end, look up at him for a moment. He could not come down from that cross. He could not undo what was happening to her heart. But he could place her hand inside another hand before he went. He could make sure that the love did not end with him. It only changed addresses. Mary did not go home alone that night. She went home with a son she had not given birth to, in a house she had not chosen, because the dying son had thought of her one more time before the dark. Now go back one night, before the cross, before the soldiers in the garden, before any of them knew what tomorrow held. A low room above a narrow street in Jerusalem, lamps lit. 13 men reclining on their sides around a long, low table, the way men ate in that century, leaning on the left elbow, the right hand free for the bread, the feet stretched out behind. The smell of roasted lamb, the smell of bitter herbs, the smell of cheap wine in clay cups. They have done this Passover every year of their lives. They know the songs, they know the order. They are tired and a little quiet, the way you get at a long meal with people you love. And then, in the middle of the bread being passed, he goes still. The text says, he was troubled in his spirit. The Greek word is the same one used for water shaken at the bottom of a well. Something deep in him moves, and he looks up and says it. Truly, truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me. Watch what happens next, because this is the moment most of us read past too fast. They do not look at each other. They do not start pointing. They do not say, it must be him, or her, or that one over there. Each of them, every one of the 12, turns to him with the same small, frightened question on his lips. Surely not I, Lord. Meti ego. The Greek grammar of that little phrase expects the answer no, but expects it nervously. It is the voice of a man who hopes the answer is no, and is not entirely sure. 12 men, 3 years of walking the same roads with him, 3 years of eating from the same bowl, sleeping under the same trees, watching him raise the dead and feed the hungry and weep over a friend's tomb. And not one of them can say with certainty, it is not me. That is the most honest moment in any room in the Bible. And here is what I want you to see. Judas is at that table. Judas is leaning on his elbow, eating the same bread, asking the same question. Surely not I, Rabbi. He already knows. The money is already counted. The deal is already done. And Jesus does not point at him. Jesus does not stand up and name him in front of the others. He reaches into the dish in the center of the table. And this is the detail that has wrecked quiet people for 2,000 years. He takes a piece of bread, dips it in the bowl with his own hand, and gives it to Judas. In that culture, at that table, that gesture had a name. It was the sop. The host gave it to the guest he wanted to honor most, the seat of friendship. The last and clearest word of love a host could speak without speaking. And Judas takes it. He takes it, and he eats it, and he stands up, and he walks out into the night to do what he has already agreed to do. If you have ever sat in your own quiet, looked back at something you did, and felt the cold of it in your chest, if you have ever thought, I am not the person I believed I was, sit at that table tonight. The men who knew him best were not sure of themselves, and he did not love them less for it. He broke the bread, he passed the cup, he handed the dipped piece to the one who was leaving, with his own hand, in front of everyone, and called it honor. Now come forward 3 days. The cross has happened, the tomb has been sealed, the Sabbath has come and gone, and on the third morning, 2 men are walking out of Jerusalem on the road that leads west, toward a village called Emmaus. 7 miles of road, about 3 hours, at a tired pace. Their names are Cleopas, and another that Luke never gives us, maybe so that you could put your own name there. The dust is dry under their sandals. The light is the long gold light of a late afternoon that does not feel like it belongs to a world where he is dead. And they are walking the wrong way, away from Jerusalem, away from the empty tomb the women had been talking about that morning, away from the other disciples, still locked behind that door. They have heard the rumors and decided the rumors are too much. They are going home, and a stranger falls in step beside them, just a traveler on the road, the way travelers join up on long roads.
He asks them what they are talking about, and they stop walking. Luke says it like that. They stood still, looking sad. And then they tell him everything about the prophet from Nazareth, mighty in word and deed, about the priests and the cross, about how they had hoped. There is no sadder word in the whole story than that. They had hoped he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And the stranger listens. He listens the whole way, and then gently he begins to speak. He walks them through Moses, through the prophets, through every place in their own scriptures where this had been written down long before any of it happened. 7 miles of that voice next to them, 7 miles, and they do not know who he is. The Greek text uses a strange little phrase, their eyes were held. Held. Passive. Someone was holding their eyes. He had chosen, on this of all afternoons, to stay hidden. And here is the part that breaks people open quietly. When they reach the village, he acts as if he is going further. They beg him to stay. Stay with us, they say, for it is toward evening, and the day is now far spent. So he goes in, and at the table, in a borrowed house in a small village, he does the thing he had done in the upper room a few nights before. He takes the bread, he blesses it, he breaks it. And the same hands they had not recognized on the road, they see them now. Their eyes were opened, the text says, and he vanished. And they sat there in the lamplight, breathing, and one of them said the line that has belonged to every honest believer ever since. Did our hearts not burn within us while he talked with us on the road? He had been there the whole walk, the whole 7 miles. They had been closer to the risen Christ than any other 2 people in the world that afternoon, and they had not known it. They felt it. They just could not name it yet. Maybe tonight you feel like you are walking away from a faith you cannot find your way back into, away from the room where the others seem so sure. Maybe you have been waiting for a sign, a phone call, a word, a feeling, and it has not come. Hear this. The 2 who were walking the wrong way did not have to turn around to be found. He came in their direction. He fell into step beside them. And what they did not recognize as his presence, they later recognized as a burning. The warmth of his nearness reached them before the knowledge of it did. So when you sit with the empty cup of your evening and think you are alone on this road, remember Emmaus. Remember the held eyes. Remember the broken bread. He is on this road. He has been on it the whole time. And one day, maybe at a table, maybe in the middle of an ordinary gesture, maybe at a moment you will only see in hindsight, your eyes will open and you will know. Father,
Thank you for walking the road with us when we did not know it was you. We confess we have been tired and unsure and quieter in our prayers than we used to be. Hold our eyes gently until we can see again. Sit at the table tonight and break the bread and let us know you are here. Stay with us, Lord. The day is far spent. I would love to know which moment stayed with you tonight, the stern of the boat and the two words that quieted the sea, the stubborn woman who would not walk away from the no, Thomas on his knees saying, "My Lord and my God," the dipped bread in Judas's hand, the held eyes on the Emmaus road. Tell me in the comments. Those quiet evening messages mean more than you know. And next time, we sit with the smallest man in Jericho, the one who climbed a tree because he was sure he had gone too far to be seen, and the moment Jesus stopped under that tree and called his name. That story is waiting for you.